Welcome in, everybody. Ready to dive into the future of journalism?
Always ready to talk about the future of news.
Well, today we're taking a deep dive into the Journalism and Technology Trends and Predictions 2025 report.
From the Reuters Institute for the Study of Journalism, right?
Exactly.
That's a big one. Their reports are always packed with insights.
Absolutely. And this one is based on a survey of, get this, 326 news executives.
Wow, 326?
Yeah, and from 51 countries, so we're getting a truly global perspective.
That's what makes this report so valuable. It's not just one region or one viewpoint.
Exactly. We're going to get a sense of the big picture, what's happening across the entire news industry.
And you know, it's not just for journalists or people in the media. This report matters to everyone because it's about how we get our news.
That's a good point. This gives us a glimpse into how the news sausage is made,
And how those methods might be changing in the next few years.
Absolutely. We're going to be talking about the biggest threats to journalism.
The technological challenges that publishers are facing.
And most importantly, what all of this means for you, the news consumer.
Because at the end of the day, it's about how we stay informed and make sense of the world.
Right. So this report is led by Nick Newman and Federica Cherubini.
Two big names in digital media.
Really are. Newman leads the annual digital news report.
And Cherubini is known for her work on newsroom innovation. So we're in good hands.
Definitely. We're going to be taking a look at what they've uncovered. And the first part of this report is titled Journalism Under Fire, which is a little dramatic, don't you think?
It does grab your attention, doesn't it? But it kind of reflects the state of things right now.
Right. And one of the first things the report points out is this kind of strange a paradox. What is that?
Well, it seems that many publishers, individually, are feeling optimistic about their own organizations.
Okay, so they're feeling good about their own work. Makes sense.
But at the same time, there's this huge drop in confidence about the future of journalism as a whole. Interesting. So they're confident in themselves, but not the industry overall. That is a bit of a head-scratcher.
Right. Why would individual organizations feel good if the whole industry is, supposedly in trouble?
Well, maybe it's because they're feeling the pressure of the changing media landscape, even if they're managing to adapt.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And one of the big pressures the report highlights is the increasingly polarized political climate.
Yeah. Politics seems to be getting more and more divisive, and unfortunately, journalism often gets caught in the crossfire.
Exactly. The report even mentions how attacks on the press are becoming more common.
Which makes it incredibly difficult for journalists to do their jobs effectively and safely.
Right. And it's not just about verbal attacks or criticism. The report talks about how some politicians are choosing to bypass traditional media altogether.
Interesting. So they're not even engaging with journalists at all.
Not in the traditional way. They're going directly to the public through their own channels or through alternative media.
I see. So cutting out the middleman, so to speak.
Yeah. The report uses Donald Trump and Kamala Harris as examples. They've both been using podcasts and YouTube to get their messages out there.
Makes sense. Those platforms give them a direct line to their supporters, and it cuts through the noise of the traditional news cycle.
Absolutely. And the report also mentions Kalen Georgescu in Romania, who used TikTok to connect with voters and sidestep traditional media.
TikTok. Wow, that's really interesting. It shows how the lines are blurring between what we consider traditional media and these newer platforms.
Right, and this trend of politicians going direct to consumer raises a big question. What happens to the role of journalism in a democratic society?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If traditional media is being bypassed, how do we ensure that information is being reported accurately and objectively?
Exactly, it's something to think about. But beyond politics, there's another big issue that the report highlights: the hunt for traffic.
The lifeblood of any online publication. Got to get those clicks.
You got it. And of course, the revenue that comes with it.
Because without revenue, you can't keep the lights on, can you?
You can't. And the numbers are pretty startling. Referral traffic from Facebook to news sites has plummeted by a whopping 67% in just the past 2 years.
67%. That's huge. I knew it was declining, but I didn't realize it was that bad.
Yeah, it's a big deal. And even Twitter, which used to be a reliable source of traffic, has seen a 50% decline.
Wow. So social media is becoming less and less reliable for news publishers.
It seems that way. And while traffic from Google search has been relatively stable so far.
Oh, so Google is still the king of search.
For now, at least. But there's a growing concern about how AI-generated summaries could change the game.
AI summaries, what do you mean?
Well, think about Google's AI overviews and OpenAI's Search GPT. You search for news about, say, a recent climate report, and instead of getting a list of articles to click on, you get a concise AI-generated summary right there on the search page.
Oh, I see. So people are getting their news from those summaries without actually visiting news websites.
Exactly, which means fewer clicks for publishers and less ad revenue.
Ouch, that's gotta hurt. It's like cutting out the middleman all over again.
And it's not just Google. The report also talks about a new wave of AI-driven news aggregators, like Perplexity and Particle. They pull together and summarize news from different sources.
So they're kind of like one-stop shops for news.
Kinda. But it raises a lot of questions for traditional news organizations. Should they license their content to these AI platforms? Even if it means potentially losing control over how their content is presented.
That's a tough one. It's a trade-off between reach and control.
Right. But the report does say that most publishers seem to prefer a collaborative approach. They want to work with AI platforms, but they want to be compensated fairly and ensure everyone's playing by the same rules.
That makes sense. They're not anti-AI. They just want a seat at the table.
Exactly. They're advocating for collective agreements rather than individual deals. They want to make sure everyone benefits, not just the big tech companies.
Good for them. It sounds like publishers are trying to be proactive and find ways to work with AI instead of just letting things happen to them.
Yeah, they're definitely trying to stay ahead of the curve. But this whole relationship with technology, it's not just about AI. The report also dives into the love-hate relationship publishers have with social media giants.
Ah, yes. The platforms that can bring in huge audiences, but also come with their own set of headaches.
Exactly. The report calls this section Navigating the Platform Maze, which I think is a pretty accurate description.
A maze indeed. Because on the one hand, platforms like Facebook and Twitter can bring in a ton of traffic.
But on the other hand, they come with their own algorithms and rules that can feel unpredictable, even unfair at times.
You never quite know what's going to work, and you're always at the mercy of their latest update. It's frustrating.
Very frustrating. And the report highlights how there's no clear consensus among publishers about what to do. Some want to strengthen their engagement with these platforms, some want to reduce it, and some are content with the status quo. It's all over the map.
Yeah, it's a real push and pull, because you need them for reach, but you're also wary of their power.
It's a bit of a marriage of convenience. And with declining traffic from Facebook and Twitter, publishers are looking for alternatives. The report points to growing interest in platforms like WhatsApp, LinkedIn, Bluesky, and even Google Discover.
Google Discover, I don't hear a lot of publishers talking about that one.
I know, it's kind of flown under the radar, but it's quietly become a significant source of traffic for some publishers. Although it can be just as unpredictable as the other platforms.
Figures. So it sounds like publishers are really having to juggle a lot right now, trying to adapt to the constantly changing world of social media and AI.
It's a lot to keep up with.
It is, but it makes you wonder, how are news organizations finding ways to stay afloat financially? With subscriptions not growing as fast as they used to, it seems like they need to find new ways to bring in revenue.
Right, they need to think outside the box.
Exactly. And that's what the report explores next. It's all about, beyond the news, the rise of product innovation.
Ooh, that sounds interesting.
It is. The big question here is, in a world overflowing with content, how can news organizations stand out, attract audiences, and thrive?
Because publishing good articles just isn't enough anymore.
Not in this day and age. It's about engaging audiences beyond the traditional news format. The report highlights a big push to reach those harder-to-reach audiences, especially young people who might not be as interested in traditional news.
Okay, so what are they doing?
Think games, educational resources, even food-related content. Things that might not seem directly related to news, but can still attract new audiences and generate revenue.
Wait, games and food? That sounds more like a lifestyle brand than a news organization.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The lines are definitely blurring. The report uses the New York Times as a prime example. They have a diverse portfolio of offerings, from games and cooking recipes to product reviews, all bundled into their all-access subscription strategy. It's like a one-stop shop for everything.
Interesting, so they're giving people more reasons to subscribe.
Exactly, more value for their money. The report also points to The Economist, which put most of its podcasts behind a paywall, and the rise of bundle subscriptions that offer a mix of local, national, and even international publications, all for one price.
So they're taking a cue from the streaming services.
Exactly. It's all about giving people options and making it easy to access the content they want. But, you know, one thing I've been noticing lately is the blurring line between traditional journalism and the world of influencers and creators.
Oh yeah, I see that too. You see personalities on YouTube, TikTok, and Substack who are becoming significant voices in the news landscape. It's a whole new breed of news provider.
It really is, and the report has a name for this trend. They call it the creatification of news.
Catchy. Makes sense, though. Think about your own media habits. How often do you get your news or information from personalities on those platforms?
Honestly, probably more than I realize. It's become a part of how we consume information.
And the report highlights how a growing number of journalists are leaving traditional media outlets to build their own personal brands on these platforms.
So they're going independent, becoming their own bosses.
Exactly. And they can build direct connections with their audiences. The report mentions specific examples, like Taylor Lorenz leaving the Washington Post for Substack and podcasting, Tucker Carlson going his own way after leaving Fox News, and former journalists like Johnny Harris finding huge success on YouTube with explainer videos.
It's an interesting shift. On the one hand, it democratizes news and brings fresh perspectives.
Right. But it also raises concerns about journalistic standards and the potential for misinformation to spread, because not everyone who calls themselves a creator follows the same rigorous fact-checking and ethical guidelines that traditional journalists are bound by.
You've got a point. It's a double-edged sword. And the report's survey reveals a divided opinion among news leaders on the impact of this trend. They see both the potential benefits and the potential risks.
Yeah, it's a complex issue. But this creator-driven approach is definitely something to watch. It's changing the face of news. But now, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the people behind the scenes, the journalists and the teams that support them.
The human side of the news industry, the ones who make it all happen.
Exactly. And the report dives into this in a section called the talent equation. One of the biggest challenges highlighted here is attracting and retaining top-notch talent, especially in fields like data science, software engineering, and product design.
Those are in-demand skills across all industries, not just news.
Exactly. So news organizations are competing with tech companies that can often offer higher salaries and more perks. It's a real talent tug-of-war.
And the report emphasizes the growing importance of what they call editorial tech hybrid roles.
Meaning?
Journalists with a strong understanding of technology, particularly AI, are becoming incredibly valuable. They can bridge the gap between the editorial side and the technical side.
So it's not enough to just be a good writer or reporter anymore.
Not at all. Journalists need to understand how technology is shaping the way news is delivered and consumed.
They're becoming multifaceted.
They have to be. The report talks about how news organizations are adapting to this need for tech-savvy journalists. They're upskilling their current staff, creating new roles that blend editorial and technology, and even partnering with universities and tech companies to attract young talent.
Those are some smart strategies.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're really trying to stay ahead of the curve. But, we've talked about a lot of challenges so far. The political climate, the hunt for traffic, the need for new revenue streams, the rise of AI. Kind of a lot.
It is. And it can feel overwhelming, not just for those working in the industry, but for all of us who consume news.
Exactly. I don't know about you, but I often find myself feeling exhausted by the constant barrage of information. The conflicts, the climate change, the political upheaval. It's a lot to take in.
I feel that too. It's like we're bombarded with bad news 24/7. It's hard to stay informed without feeling completely drained.
And the report acknowledges this phenomenon. They call it battling news fatigue on both sides.
On both sides? You mean it's affecting journalists too?
Exactly. It's not just the audience that's feeling overwhelmed, it's the people reporting the news as well.
That makes sense. It must be tough to be constantly immersed in negativity. So how are news organizations trying to combat this news fatigue, both for themselves and their audiences?
Well, the report highlights a few interesting approaches. Some are experimenting with new formats and storytelling techniques to make difficult news more accessible and engaging. Moving beyond the traditional text article and finding ways to connect with people on a deeper level.
So instead of just reporting the facts, they're finding ways to make the news more relatable and understandable, to tell stories that resonate.
Exactly. There's also a growing focus on positive news stories. Not to ignore the bad stuff, but to provide a sense of balance and hope. And there's a movement toward what's called slow journalism.
Slow journalism. What's that?
It's about emphasizing in-depth, insightful pieces over the constant churn of breaking news. It's about taking the time to really understand the issues and present them in a thoughtful and nuanced way.
So it's about quality over quantity.
Exactly. And the report gives some specific examples of how news organizations are putting these ideas into practice. For example, The Guardian has been using daily explainers to break down complex issues surrounding the war in Ukraine.
That makes sense. It's a way to give people the information they need without overwhelming them with too much detail.
Right. And the report also highlights Dagens Nyheter in Sweden, which uses live blogs, podcasts, and social media videos to keep audiences engaged with important but potentially difficult stories.
It's about meeting people where they are, using different platforms and formats to make the news more accessible.
And I remember reading about Helsing and Sanomat in Finland using photography to show the impact of the war in Gaza. They showed images of the devastation to members of parliament and captured their emotional responses.
That's powerful. It brings the human cost of war into sharp focus. It shows how changing the way a story is told can make a huge difference in terms of impact and engagement.
We've covered a lot of ground already, but this is just the tip of the iceberg.
And I can't wait to dive into the rest of the report, especially this whole AI thing. It's fascinating.
Me too. Next time, we're going to explore how artificial intelligence is transforming the newsroom and what it means for you, the news consumer.
This is going to be good. I can't wait.
Me neither. So stay tuned, folks. We'll be back soon with more from Journalism and Technology Trends and Predictions 2025.
See you then. Picking up where we left off, AI is really shaking things up, you know? It's like it's woven into everything these days.
It really is. And this report dives deep into how it's impacting journalism, changing how news is both produced and consumed.
It's a whole section called AI Transforming the Newsroom and Your Newsfeed. Sounds pretty dramatic, huh?
It does. Makes it sound like AI is going to be running the whole show soon.
Well, not quite a takeover, but the changes are happening fast. The report points out news organizations are using AI for all sorts of things already.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, things like automating tasks, freeing up journalists from the more mundane stuff, and personalizing content for different audiences.
Ah, so you get the news that's most relevant to you.
Exactly. But here's the thing that kind of blew my mind. They're even using AI to help create content itself.
Whoa, wait, AI writing the news, is that even a good idea?
It's happening, but it's not about replacing journalists entirely. More like AI is becoming this powerful tool,
A tool to help journalists be more efficient.
Exactly. The report mentions these AI toolkits that can suggest headlines, fact-check info, even generate different summaries of an article.
So it's like AI is becoming a super efficient assistant for journalists.
Yeah, freeing them up to focus on the deeper stuff, the stuff that needs a human touch, the in-depth reporting, the analysis,
That makes sense. But it's not just about speed and efficiency, is it?
Not at all. The report also talks about content transformation, using AI to turn written articles into audio or video, or even translate them into different languages.
Whoa, that's pretty amazing. So you could listen to your favorite newspaper on your commute or read news from another country in your own language.
Exactly. It's opening up a whole new world of possibilities for reaching wider audiences. And this AI stuff isn't just happening behind the scenes either.
Oh, what else is going on?
The report talks about these audience-facing AI applications like chatbots and interactive search interfaces.
Sounds futuristic. Like, am I going to have to learn how to chat with a robot to get my news now?
Uh-huh. Maybe not quite yet, but the technology is moving in that direction.
Any examples of this in action?
Yeah, the report mentions Aftonbladet, a Swedish publication. They developed this election buddy chatbot that could answer questions about the Swedish elections.
It's like a personalized election guide.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh? And the Washington Post is testing out Ask the Post AI, letting readers get answers from their archive of articles.
Like having an AI librarian for news? That's amazing.
Right, and the Financial Times is doing something similar with Ask FT, so publishers are definitely experimenting with this stuff.
It's pretty exciting, but AI is just a tool, right? And any tool can be used for good or bad.
You're absolutely right. And the report doesn't shy away from the potential risks of AI in journalism.
What kind of risks are we talking about?
Well, accuracy is a big one. Can we be sure the AI is getting the facts right? And bias is another concern.
Yeah, AI is only as good as the data it's trained on, right?
Exactly. And then there's the potential for job displacement. If AI can write articles, what happens to journalists?
These are all valid concerns. It's not all sunshine and roses.
But the report emphasizes that it's not about AI versus humans. It's about finding the right balance.
How to use AI to support and enhance human journalism, not replace it.
Exactly. And they stress the need for responsible implementation, Clear guidelines, ethical considerations, all that good stuff.
So it's not just about the tech itself. It's about how we use it.
Absolutely. But this report goes even further down the rabbit hole, talking about intelligent agents. And that's where things get really interesting.
Intelligent agents. Fill me in. This sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It kind of does, right? But we're talking about AI-powered assistants that can perform tasks, gather info, even interact with the world on your behalf. Think like a super smart personal assistant who knows everything about you and helps you navigate your day.
Okay, that's a little freaky, but also kind of cool.
Right. And companies like Apple are already developing these kinds of intelligence services.
So I could see how having an AI agent manage my calendar or filter my emails would be amazing, but the report suggests they'll go way beyond that and actually become our main source of news.
Yep, that's the prediction. Companies like OpenAI, Google, Apple, they're all developing these multimodal agents that can understand text, audio, video, even computer code.
Whoa, that's a lot of data.
And the key here is the conversational interface. It's natural, intuitive. You're not just typing in search terms, you're having a conversation with your AI agent.
So I could just ask my AI agent, hey, what's the latest on the climate talks?
Yeah.
And it would give me a personalized update.
Exactly. And the report says this will make news more accessible, especially for people who find traditional text-based formats difficult.
I can see that. But, if we're relying on these AI agents to curate and filter news for us, how can we be sure they're giving us a balanced and unbiased view? That seems like a big concern.
It's a huge concern, and the report acknowledges the potential for these agents to be influenced by the biases of their creators or the data they're trained on.
So even with AI, we still have to be aware of bias.
Absolutely. And they stress transparency and ethical considerations in designing and deploying these agents. We need to know who controls them, how they're trained, what safeguards are in place.
It's like that Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. Applies to AI too, it seems.
Totally. And one of the exciting things about this technology is personalization. Imagine an AI agent that knows you so well, it filters out all the irrelevant stuff and delivers only the news that matters to you.
For someone like me who constantly feels overwhelmed by information overload, that sounds like a dream come true. A personalized news stream curated just for me. Sign me up.
It could be revolutionary, but the report also points out potential downsides, Like, what if we only consume news that aligns with our existing beliefs? Could lead to echo chambers and further polarization.
Yeah, it's like the filter bubble problem amplified by AI. Not good.
And then there's the concern of becoming overly reliant on these agents, losing our ability to think critically and form our own opinions.
Just passively absorbing what our AI agent feeds us. Yikes.
That's the risk. So the report really emphasizes the importance of media literacy, understanding the biases and limitations of these technologies, and using them as tools to enhance our understanding, not replacements for critical thinking.
So we're heading into this new era of news shaped by AI and these intelligent agents, but it's up to us to be smart about it.
To stay informed, engage critically, and not just blindly trust the algorithms.
Okay, so we've explored how AI is changing the game in the newsroom. But this report takes us even further down the rabbit hole.
Deeper into the world of those AI-powered intelligent agents, right?
Yeah, those things are straight out of science fiction.
It does feel like sci-fi coming to life, but it's happening right now. Companies like Apple are leading the charge.
Apple, what are they doing?
They're developing what they're calling Apple Intelligence Services. Think of it like Siri on steroids.
Siri on steroids. Okay, now that's an image.
But seriously, these agents go way beyond setting reminders or playing music. They're designed to manage your entire digital life.
And the report suggests they'll even become our main source for news.
That's the prediction. Companies like OpenAI, Google, Apple, they're all in on this, building these multimodal agents.
Multimodal meaning?
Meaning they can understand and respond to practically anything. Text, audio, video, even computer code.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah.
So it's not just about voice commands anymore.
Not at all. The key here is the conversational interface. It's designed to be natural and intuitive, like you're talking to another person.
So instead of searching for news on a website, I could just ask my AI agent, hey, what's the latest on the climate talks?
Exactly. And your agent would give you a personalized update, filtering out the noise and highlighting the stuff you care about.
That sounds amazing, especially for someone like me who feels overwhelmed by information overload.
The report predicts this will make news more accessible for everyone, especially folks who find traditional text-based formats challenging. Imagine listening to an audio summary of a complex news story or having your agent translate an article from a foreign publication.
Okay, now that's pretty cool. But it also raises some red flags for me. If we're relying on AI to curate and filter news for us, how can we be sure we're getting a balanced view?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And the report acknowledges those concerns. There's a real risk of these agents being influenced by biases.
Biases from...
Well, from their creators or the data they're trained on. We've talked about this before. AI is only as good as the information it's fed.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. So the report really stresses the need for transparency and ethical considerations in designing and deploying these agents. We need to know who's controlling them, how they're being trained, what safeguards are in place to ensure they're serving our best interests.
Sounds like we need some serious AI ethics guidelines.
We do, because with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Always. But on a more positive note, one of the most exciting things about this technology is its potential for personalization.
Oh yeah, imagine an AI agent that knows you so well, it filters out all the irrelevant news and delivers only the stuff that truly matters to you.
Like a personalized news digest beamed directly into my brain.
Exactly. It could be revolutionary. But the report also acknowledges the potential downsides.
Like what?
Well, if we only consume news that aligns with our existing beliefs, it could create these echo chambers and further divide us.
The filter bubble problem on steroids.
Right. And there's also the risk of becoming overly reliant on these agents to the point where we lose our ability to think critically and form our own opinions.
So instead of engaging with different viewpoints and challenging our assumptions, we just passively absorb what our AI agent feeds us.
That's the danger. So the report emphasizes the importance of media literacy. We need to be aware of the potential biases and limitations of these technologies and use them as tools to enhance our understanding, not as replacements for critical thinking.
So it's like anything else. AI can be a powerful tool for good, but we need to be mindful of the risks.
Exactly. It's all about being informed and engaged, not just blindly trusting the algorithms.
This has been an incredible deep dive exploring the future of journalism. From the challenges of polarization and declining traffic to the innovations in product development and the mind-blowing potential of AI.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But hopefully this report has given you some insights and some food for thought. Because the future of news is ultimately in our hands. It's up to us to stay informed, engage critically, and hold those in power accountable. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into journalism and technology trends and predictions 2025.
It's been a fascinating journey, and who knows what the future holds, but I'm excited to see what happens next.
Me too. And we'll be here to explore it all with you. Until next time, stay curious and stay engaged.
See you then.
Stay ahead, stay informed, stay relevant.